I received an email the other day, completely out of the blue, from a guy called Edward who said he was in a pub quiz. One of the questions was, how many sides does a banana have? And although he got the answer wrong, the answer was 5. And so he did some more research on bananas and found that bananas have 3 parts to the inside of the fruit. So his question to me was, how does the 5 on the outside line up with the 3 on the inside? But that got me thinking. So this is a normal banana. It's a Cavendish banana, that's the variety. All Cavendish bananas are clones of each other, which means they're genetically identical. I mean, a banana doesn't have seeds in it, so it can't exactly reproduce sexually. So if you were to push right down the center of the banana, you will notice that it splits really easily into 3 parts. And that is because the flower, the ovary of the flower, had 3 parts to it, 3 locules. It's the name for like the hole in the ovary. And so the fruit develops in 3. And because the banana is centered around the number 3, that's why it's a bit odd that you get 5 sides on the outside of a banana, because you'd expect it to be a multiple of 3. You'd expect there to be, say, 6 sides to a banana. So what do I mean by the sides of a banana? Well, if you take a banana, preferably one that's not too ripe because it gets less noticeable the riper the banana is, you'll see that there are ridges that run all the way from the stem to the flower scar. And remember that bananas normally grow this way up. And you can, if I was to draw on these ridges, you'll be able to see them more clearly. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this has 5 ridges and therefore 5 sides. So this banana has 5 sides, but do all bananas have 5 sides? So, like any good scientist, I went and collected more data. I actually stood by the banana section in multiple supermarkets, going around going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, and most of them had 5 sides. And then I found one banana that had 4 sides. And that means that 5 sides is not universal. It only takes one 4-sided banana to prove that not all bananas have 5 sides. But I wanted to know, okay, well, what is the average number of sides of a banana? And so I needed yet more data. I needed an even bigger sample size. And so I went ahead and bought 280 bananas. Now, counting 280 bananas was not only going to take me quite a lot of time, but then I'd be stuck with 280 bananas. So luckily last week I was invited to perform at the stand-up show for Festival of the Spoken Nerd. You probably know Matt Parker and Steve Mould and Helen Arney from YouTube. And so what's a girl gonna do with 280 bananas but have a bit of an Oprah moment? If you think that's good, well, get ready to catch everyone. You get a banana, and you get a banana, and you get a banana, and everybody gets bananas. You get a banana, and you get a banana, and everybody gets bananas. After that mayhem, I managed to get 175 bananas counted. That's a great sample size, really large. And before I looked at the data, in fact, before I even bought that many bananas, I wanted to hypothesize why so many bananas have 5 sides, but some of them only have 4 sides. So I looked to the biology of the banana. Bananas, unsurprisingly, grow on banana trees, although more surprisingly, banana trees aren't actually trees, they're herbs. But moving on, bananas grow in hands. The whole bunch of them is a hand, and you'll get about 10 to 20 Cavendish bananas in a hand. And I was looking at these pictures and I spotted that bananas always grow in 2 rows. And with all these bananas growing together, I looked at where the sides actually are within the hand. And I noticed that normally you'd get one of these ridges where 2 bananas were touching each other. And where there was a gap next to the banana, you'd tend to get just this one edge rather than lots of ridges. And this made me wonder, well, maybe it's the number of neighbours that influences how many sides the banana has. So I looked through all the scientific literature, hoping to find something on how all the bananas squidge together. Do they always have the same number of neighbours? And I found this paper published by Kew Gardens in 1953 called The Origin of the Banana inflorescence. And what's great, like I mentioned before, is that all bananas are genetically identical, so they all should have very, very similar patterns of where the bananas grow within the inflorescence. And I found this figure, figure 1, which someone has looked at the flower buds developing and shown how they grow. And just like in the pictures of the adult bananas, you can see that it forms 2 rows and that these flowers form a zigzag pattern. There's a field of maths that actually looks at if you've got things growing from a point and you've got neighbours next to each other, you can get a boundary where those 2 neighbours touch. And it's Voronoi tessellations that gives you Voronoi patterns. You see it all over nature. And combining the Voronoi idea with this figure and a very handy website that had been made by a guy called Alex Butel, which allows you to draw your own Voronoi patterns and put the starting points in, I was able to replicate figure 1 as if it was a Voronoi diagram. And this one has 16 bananas in the hand. That's pretty average for a Cavendish banana. And if we count them, 12 out of the 16, 3/4 of the bananas, should have 5 sides because they've got 4 neighbours. And then the ones on the very ends of the bunch have got either 4 or 3 sides. And this means that if my neighbours hypothesis, my Voronoi hypothesis is correct, I would expect to see 3/4 of bananas having 5 sides and the other quarter having either 3 or 4 sides. And that would give me a mean number of sides of 4.625. And now I've got a hypothesis. I can look at the data, the 175 bananas that the audience at the comedy club counted for me. I genuinely did not know how this was going to go, but it looks like this. I could not believe how similar these graphs looked. Seriously, it could have been any distribution. It could have been normal, it could have been literally there were only 5 and then a tiny number of 4-sided bananas. But look how similar they look. This is insane, especially because I've not seen anything about tessellations or Voronoi patterns being used to explain the number of sides of a banana. In fact, I couldn't find anything explaining the number of sides of a banana. But still, I'd come up with this hypothesis and it looks so similar. Obviously got to do some statistics on this, can't just eyeball it as much as I would want to. And because I got a large sample size, it doesn't matter that these aren't normally distributed. I can still do a t-test on the means, on the averages, and it turns out that we get a non-significant result, which normally you'd be a bit miffed as a scientist to see a non-significant result, but this test is testing, are these 2 means different? And so non-significant means it's not able to disprove that the means are the same, which basically means that the means are the same, which means that my predicted mean and the actual mean are the same, which is amazing. I will say that if you look at the overall distribution, not just the means, and do either a chi-squared test, which you can't really do because the expected value is of 0, or if you do a Fisher's exact test, then you don't get the distributions coming out as exactly the same. But given this is biology and biology is really messy, I'm pretty impressed with this hypothesis as going a long way to explain the number of sides that a banana has. And that means that the answer to how many sides does a banana have is actually 4.625 sides, which Matt Parker did point out is 5 sides when rounded to the nearest whole number of sides, but that's not the point. It means you can't just say that all bananas have 5 sides in the same way that the average person has less than 2 legs because of the number of one-legged or no-legged people. It brings down the averages. Averages are allowed to have non-integer values. We're allowed to have a fractional number of sides of a banana. And actually someone at the comedy club came up to me afterwards from the audience and brought me this banana which at one end has 4 edges and at the other end has 5 edges and therefore is a 4.625 sided banana, which I thought was great. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a long time since I've made one, but I am now back. You can expect to see many more science videos from me in your sub feed. This is now my full-time job. So if you or a company wants to pay this newly qualified doctor of science to make videos for you, drop me a link on my email, which is all on my website, Thank you very much and see you next time, which actually won't be that long.